Take one.
I am so excited that we are starting our annual Oscar sermon series this coming Sunday. We've been doing this for several years now, where we take one of the films nominated for Best Film and we actually craft a sermon exploring how what's happening in that movie intersects with the Christian story and how they inform each other. And it is so exciting.
One of the things that we found is that not every movie is a theological movie, but every great film raises big questions of life, big existential questions that are juicy enough to dig into. And so our job is to explore those questions within the context of faith.
So this coming Sunday, I'm going to start with The Shape of Water. And the tagline is, "My love colors outside the lines." It's an incredible adult fairy tale where you look at, love and transforming and people being alone and how they figure out how things work together. It's a complete play on Beauty and the Beast or Creature from the Black Lagoon. A lot of fun.
Great. The week after that, I'm going to be looking at The Post, the story of the management of Washington Post who were handed the Pentagon Papers, talking about the atrocities disclosed in the Vietnam War. And they had to decide whether or not they were going to publish this dangerous story. And so as we look at the film, we'll also be looking at the dangerous story that we carry as a Christian community, a story that doesn't sit well with injustice, that challenges unjust social systems, that encourages us to break out of oppressive ways of being, especially for those who are on the margins or in the minority. And so on February 18th, we're going to be looking at the dangerous story in the Post and the dangerous story that we carry, and how are we going to live into that? And
so the next week, on the 25th, I get to preach on 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Mississippi, which is a disturbing film and has created a lot of reaction in people. It's going to be an opportunity to look at the desire for justice, but how we get driven by anger and how sometimes that can backfire and do some damage to your soul, and yet how do you call people to account? And we're going to hold that in tension with the Christian invitation to forgiveness or to turn the other cheek, or how do you mix justice, anger, change, and love? And is there a track for redemption? Hard to know.
I look forward to it.
Oh.
And then the following week, the last Sunday of the Oscar series, is March 4th, the night of the Academy Awards. And so we'll be concluding this series with The Darkest Hour, that story of Winston Churchill in power in World War II, the beginning of World War II, right as British troops were trapped in Dunkirk. And within days of his coming into the position of Prime Minister, he and his cabinet and the Parliament needed to figure out what they were going to do with these 300,000 soldiers that were trapped in Dunkirk. So as we have that story going on, it was fascinating to me to be reminded that Churchill, coming into that position, was not a popular politician. Even people in his own party had no confidence in his leadership whatsoever. So it reminded me of, again, the story of our faith and all of the times people who apparently are totally unqualified, like Moses, like Esther, like Paul, like all of the disciples of Jesus, like Jesus himself, came with no qualifications whatsoever, and yet changed the course of history through their actions, the decisions that they made. So just as Churchill was living in a dark hour, we have our own dark hour today. We're not sending sons and daughters into war, but we live in a time where trained journalists are called liars and media is dismissed regularly. We live in a time where climate change looms with very little action. We have our own dark hour. How are we, as unqualified as we might be, how are we responding to the challenges of our time?
You can tell that we're really excited, and we're inviting people from all around, all over to come in. If you haven't seen the movie, there's usually a quick plot summary, so you get on board very quickly. And it's an opportunity to, actually do your theologies while you're looking at movies and checking it out.
Hope you can come.